Coming up on the Willis Report, more unintended consequences, this time affecting your tax return. Our expert Doug Flynn discusses another blow for taxpayers if Congress doesn't act soon.
Well, the IRS issuing a warning that if Congress doesn't act soon to address the fiscal cliff and the alternative minimum tax patch, tens of millions of us could be hit with a very large tax bill. You also might not want to be able to file much later, so expect major delays for that refund. Here with more, Doug Flynn, co-founder of Flynn Zito Capital Management. So, Doug, I can't get over this whole story. We have the fiscal cliff. The AMT is just a small part of that. But the IRS is saying we're not going to change our computer programs because we really don't know what's going to happen. Right. It could be chaos out there.
It could. Well, they're expecting that they're going to sign a patch in like they have every year, but it doesn't
look... And the patch means that the law goes back to what it has been over the past 12 months, and you don't have to pay that AMT.
Right.
How many people would be on the hook, and what would it mean for them?
So right now there's about 4 million people who are affected, but that would go up to 30 some odd million people.
A lot.
A lot. So about 28 million people would now be thrust into AMT. And if you remember, this was going back to 1969, 1970 for 155 people is what they wanted to get that weren't paying enough taxes.
This was for the Richies.
It was.
Who weren't paying their taxes.
They never indexed it, and every year more and more people got in. But now with this, the IRS is saying, hey, if we assume it's going to happen and it doesn't, then no one will be able to file their tax return on time. So if you're expecting a refund, you are not going to get your refund. And actually, this gets back to something that we've been telling clients for years now, which if you have an investment account, you're getting a lot of revisions every year. You can't file your tax return in February or March, but everyone who gets a refund wants to because they want to get their money. This is going to be more people who are expecting that money in February or March and just can't, and will be lucky if they can file by April based on how this is going.
Now, let's talk about the bottom line here for a second with AMT, because if you have to pay AMT, it means you pay more money.
Right.
It's more expensive. Your taxes are higher. By how much on average?
Well, so what happens is they're saying normally with your deductions and your income, you're expected to pay X, and then there's basically a completely separate tax return that you have to do, and if that amount is more, you pay the higher amount. What this is going to amount to is an additional, approximately, according to the Tax Policy Center, $3,700 per tax filer times 28 million. Yes.
So nice to hear that we get to pay more taxes. Yes. Now, it's not just the AMT at the end of the year, though. So we have all the Bush tax cuts.
That's
could
right.
be changing. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with that. And capital gains taxes, all of this changing.
The payroll tax is going to go back up.
What are you telling your clients?
Well, most of the calls that we're getting and the discussions we're having are more about the spending, because you realize that even if you get all of this money, let's say they don't come together, everybody's line in the sand is drawn and they're not going to do anything, and everyone has to pay the $3,700 on average, you're going to raise about $100 billion. If you tax the high wage earners, you're going to raise another $80 billion. That still only gets you so far to the $1.1 trillion.
It doesn't take us anywhere near paying off our debt.
But $3,700 to an average family right now, plus the extra 2% you have to pay back to Social Security because that's no longer there, is real money for people at a time when you probably can ill afford to spend that.
I agree. Well, just to summarize what you're saying here, don't pay your taxes early, hoping to get that refund early, because it's just not going to happen this year. And beware the AMT. And you have to check for it. You have to make sure that you run the numbers to make sure you don't owe that money.
Yes, your tax program or your accountant will run both and tell you you're subject to it or not. But the difference is 4 million or perhaps 30 some odd million people that are going to be affected by this. It's a big number.
IRS doesn't care. They're not running the computer programs to do it.
Why would you make 2 programs and then switch from A to B? Let's just not do anything.
All right, Doug, thanks so much. Appreciate it. A lot more still to come in the hour, including the blackout on Long Island. It continues 2.5 weeks after Sandy. Why? Because the power company is controlled by the government. I'll break it down. Plus, an all-star panel weighs in. Coming up.
No, you're not the one for me.